I will show how to compare two projects using Excel. We have project A with cash outflows of 4,000 in years 1 and 2, and project B with cash outflows of $5,000 in years 1 and 2. And you see that figures are different for these two projects, and we won't compare them. So, first of all, and the easiest way to compare is to compare payback periods. In order to compare payback period, we just look at sum of figures. Please look here at sum, and you see at the moment when sum becomes positive. You see, 7 years sum is negative, and 8 years sum becomes positive, 1,000. So, payback period is 8 years for this project. 8 years. Let's look at payback period for project B. We sum figures, cash flows, and we see 7 years it is negative, and 8 years it becomes positive. So, payback period for project B is also 8 years. 8 years. Next thing we can do is calculate net present value. Let's assume that our cost of capital is 9%, so we will calculate net present value at 9%. We can do it using formula of Excel, net present value. We write 9%, and afterwards we put our figures of cash flows into our formula, and we get 768. But I think we have to check it. Is it correct? So we write discount factor at 9%, and we write 9 divided by 9 plus 9% root, not root, but this. I'm sorry, it's my little baby is telling something to her mother. Okay, in another room. And we got discount factor. So present value will be equal cash flow multiplied by discount factor, and you see this amount is 768. Let's write this up. You see this figure? So we got this figure, and here figures are the same, 767.95. It is the net present value. So this formula calculated this correctly. But please take into attention year 0 is absent here. When we calculate net present value using formula in Excel, there is no year 0, only year 1. Everything starts with year 1. Please take it into your attention. Okay, now we should calculate internal rate of return. So we write IRR and put these figures here, and we got 11.14%. Internal rate of return is the rate at which net present value equals to 0. So at 11.14%, net present value will equal to 0. Let's check it. In order to check it, we just make another discount factor at 11.14% and put here 11.14 and copy this formula and paste it to other places. And you look here, net present value equals to -1 approximately. It is approximately 0. So internal rate of return is calculated correctly. And we can calculate modified internal rate of return. In order to calculate modified internal rate of return, we have to know cost, okay, we have to know finance rate and reinvestment rate. Let's assume that finance rate and reinvestment rate are the same and are 9%, the same as cost of capital. Let's assume, let it be our assumption. So we put our figures of cash flows, put 9% as finance rate, put 9% as reinvestment rate, and we got 10.13% for modified internal rate of return. So now let's calculate the same figures for project B and compare these two projects. Sorry, payback period is the same 8 years for project B. Net present value at 9% for project B will be equal to 444. Okay, just format this so it's the same. Okay, and we can calculate internal rate of return for our cash flows for project B, and it's equal to approximately 10%. So, and we can calculate modified internal rate of return for our cash flows of project B using the same 9% of finance rate and 9% of reinvestment rate. Finance rate is the cost of capital, and reinvestment rate is the rate at which we can reinvest our cash inflows. But we take the figure 9 for simplicity here. We take only 9%. So we see that modified internal rate of return is 9.5%. You can notice that modified internal rate of return is less than internal rate of return in both cases. And we can check that our internal rate of return is calculated correctly. So, in order to do it, we just take discount factor at 9.99%. And we write 1 divided 1 plus okay, and we copy this formula, paste it, we write present value equals cash flow multiplied by discount factor, and we copy this formula for all cash flows, and we just summarize this. Look here, formula, you see, we summarized all present values, and we got approximately 0, 1.74. It is very close to 0. So it means that our internal rate of return of 9.99% is correct, and because our net present value equals approximately 0 at this rate. So we can now, after calculations, we can compare these two projects. We see that payback period is 8 years. It is the same for project A and project B. We see that net present value is little bit more for project A, and we see that internal rate of return is more for project A. It is 11% compared to 10% for project B. And modified internal rate of return of project A is 10% compared to 9.5% for project B. So we just put here project payback period equals to payback period of project B. The net present value at 9% for project A is more than the net present value of project B. IRR of project A is more than for project A is more than for project B, and modified internal rate of return is more for project A than for project B. So we can conclude that in this very case we should choose project A. But before choosing project A, we should make sensitivity analysis, analyze some other factors, look at other projects, and so on. But if we are not given information about all other factors, we can conclude that project A is definitely better than project B. So that's all for this little example of comparison to projects.